Hello to all of the Real Progressives out there. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Start with Real Progressives plugs as usual. You guys know the drill. If you want to learn more about us or support our organization, find any of our content, articles, podcasts, etc., go to realprogressives.org. You can also find our Patreon there if you'd like to contribute to our organization. Every little bit helps, you guys. We very much appreciate the help. We're engaged in media, education, activism, organizing, all this kind of stuff. So please go to our website if you want to contribute or learn more about us. We're going to start today with a rather horrendous story. I'm sure that some of you have been following the revelations about how the FBI covered for Larry Nassar and his abuse of United States gymnasts, children, girls, under the guise of medical treatment. We're going to watch a few clips here. The first is Simone Biles. A number of gymnasts testified before Congress about their experience in dealing with the FBI throughout this process. So we're going to start with Simone Biles, and then I have a couple other clips to show you guys as well. This was the opening of the proceedings.
I don't want another young gymnast, Olympic athlete, or any individual to experience the horror that I and hundreds of others have endured before, during, and continuing to this day in the wake of the Larry Nassar abuse. To be clear,
Take your time.
To be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse. USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee knew that I was abused by their official team doctor long before I was ever made aware of their knowledge. In May of 2015, Rhonda Fayen, the former head of USA Gymnastics women's program, was told by my friend and teammate, Maggie Nichols, that she suspected I, too, was a victim. I didn't understand the magnitude of what all was happening until the Indianapolis Star published its article in the fall of 2016, entitled, "Former USA Gymnastics Doctor Accused of Abuse."
So that was just a short clip there from the intro from Simone Biles. We're now going to watch Ali Reisman, her testimony here.
I want to express my gratitude to the other brave survivors here today, my friends and my teammates, for sharing their stories and continuing to press for justice and reform. Over the past few years, it has become painfully clear how a survivor's healing is affected by the handling of their abuse. And it disgusts me that we are still fighting for the most basic answers and accountability over 6 years later. In 2015, it was known that at least 6 national team athletes had been abused by Nassar. There was even one of the athletes that was abused on film. Given our abuser's unfettered access to children, stopping him should have been a priority. Instead, the following occurred. The FBI failed to interview pertinent parties in a timely manner. It took over 14 months for the FBI to contact me, despite my many requests to be interviewed by them. The records established that Steve Penny, FBI agent Jay Abbott, and their subordinates worked to conceal Nassar's crimes. Steve Penny arranged with the FBI to conduct my interview at the Olympic Training Center, where I was under the control and observation of USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. The day of my interview, Steve Penny flew to the Olympic Training Center, and he made sure I was aware he was there. I felt pressured by the FBI to consent to Nassar's plea deal. The agent diminished the significance of my abuse. It made me feel my criminal case wasn't worth pursuing. Special agent in charge of investigating Nassar met Steve Penny for beers to discuss job opportunities in the Olympic movement. Another FBI agent worked with Steve Penny to determine jurisdiction without interviewing the survivors. I've watched multiple high-ranking officials at USAG, USOPC, and FBI resign or retire without explanation of how they may have contributed to the problem, some of whom were publicly thanked for their service and rewarded with severance or bonus money. My reports of abuse were not only buried by USAG, USOPC, but they were also mishandled by federal law enforcement officers who failed to follow their most basic duties. The FBI and others within both USAG and USOPC knew that Nassar molested children and did nothing to restrict his access. Steve Penny and any USAG employee could have walked a few steps to file a report with the Indiana Child Protective Services since they shared the same building. Instead, they quietly allowed Nassar to slip out the side door, knowingly allowing him to continue his work at MSU, Sparrow Hospital, a USAG club, and even run for school board. Nassar found more than 100 new victims to molest. It was like serving innocent children up to a pedophile on a silver platter.
Pretty scathing testimony there. And the last clip that I want to show you guys, this one's a little bit longer. This is Michaela Maroney, and I do want to warn you, she gives some details of the abuse. Again, just absolutely scathing testimony, and I wanted to make sure to show you guys this full clip. So this is Michaela Maroney's testimony about Nassar's abuse.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, and members of the Judiciary Committee for inviting me to speak today. As most of you are probably aware, I was molested by the U.S. Gymnastics national team and Olympic team doctor, Larry Nassar. And in actuality, he turned out to be more of a pedophile than he was a doctor. What I'm trying to bring to your attention today is something incredibly disturbing and illegal. After telling my entire story of abuse to the FBI in the summer of 2015, not only did the FBI not report my abuse, but when they eventually documented my report 17 months later, they made entirely false claims about what I said. After reading the Office of Inspector General's OIG report, I was shocked and deeply disappointed at this narrative they chose to fabricate. They chose to lie about what I said and protect a serial child molester rather than protect not only me, but countless others. My story is one in which Special Agent in Charge Jay Abbott and his subordinates did not want you to hear, and it's time that I tell you. In the summer of 2015, like I said, I was scheduled to speak to the FBI about my abuse with Larry Nassar over the phone. I was too sick to go meet with anyone in person, and talking about this abuse would give me PTSD for days. But I chose to speak about it to try and make a difference and protect others. I remember sitting on my bedroom floor for nearly 3 hours as I told them what happened to me. I hadn't even told my own mother about these facts, but I thought as uncomfortable and as hard as it was to tell my story, I was going to make a difference, and hopefully protecting others from the same abuse. I answered all of their questions honestly and clearly, and I disclosed all of my molestations I had endured by Nassar to them in extreme detail. They told me to start from the beginning. I told them about the sport of gymnastics, how you make the national team, and how I came to meet Larry Nassar when I was 13 at a Texas camp. I told him that the first thing Larry Nassar ever said to me was to change into shorts with no underwear because that would make it easier for him to work on me. And within minutes, he had his fingers in my vagina. The FBI then immediately asked, "Did he insert his fingers into your rectum?" I said, "No, he never did." They asked if he used gloves. I said, "No, he never did." They asked if this treatment ever helped me. I said, "No, it never did." This treatment was 100% abuse and never gave me any relief. I then told the FBI about Tokyo, the day he gave me a sleeping pill for the plane ride, to then work on me later that night. That evening, I was naked, completely alone, with him on top of me, molesting me for hours. I told them I thought I was going to die that night because there was no way that he would let me go. But he did. I told them I walked the halls of Tokyo Hotel at 2 a.m. at only 15 years old, I began crying at the memory over the phone, and there was just dead silence. I was so shocked at the agent's silence and disregard for my trauma. After that minute of silence, he asked, "Is that all?" Those words in itself was one of the worst moments of this entire process for me. To have my abuse be minimized and disregarded by the people who were supposed to protect me, just to feel like my abuse was not enough. But the truth is, my abuse was enough, and they wanted to cover it up. USA Gymnastics, in concert with the FBI and the Olympic Committee, were working together to conceal that Larry Nassar was a predator. I then proceeded to tell them about London and how he'd signed me up last on his sheet so he could molest me for hours twice a day. I told them how he molested me right before I won my team gold medal, how he gave me presents, bought me caramel macchiatos and bread when I was hungry. I even sent them screenshots of Nassar's last text to me, which was, "Michaela, I love how you see the world with rose-colored glasses. I hope you continue to do so." This was very clear cookie-cutter pedophilia and abuse. And this is important because I told the FBI all of this, and they chose to falsify my report and to not only minimize my abuse, but silence me yet again. I thought, given the severity of this situation, that they would act quickly for the sake of protecting other girls. But instead, it took them 14 months to report anything, when Larry Nassar, in my opinion, should have been in jail that day. The FBI, USOC, and USAG sat idly by as dozens of girls and women continued to be molested by Larry Nassar. According to the OIG report, about 14 months after I disclosed my abuse to the FBI, nearly a year and a half later, the FBI agent who interviewed me in 2015 decided to write down my statement, a statement that the OIG report determined to be materially false. Let's be honest. By not taking immediate action from my report, they allowed a child molester to go free for more than a year. And this inaction directly allowed Nassar's abuse to continue. What is the point of reporting abuse if our own FBI agents are going to take it upon themselves to bury that report in a drawer? They had legal, legitimate evidence of child abuse and did nothing. If they're not going to protect me, I want to know, who are they trying to protect? What's even more upsetting to me is that we know that these FBI agents have committed an obvious crime. They falsified my statement, and that is illegal in itself. Yet no recourse has been taken against them. The Department of Justice refused to prosecute these individuals. Why? Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco couldn't even bring herself to be here today, and it is the Department of Justice's job to hold them accountable. I am tired of waiting for people to do the right thing, because my abuse was enough, and we deserve justice. These individuals clearly violated policies and were negligent in executing their duties, and in doing so, more girls were abused by Larry Nassar for over a year. To not indict these agents is a disservice to me and my teammates. It is a disservice to the system, which was built to protect all of us from abuse. It was a disservice to every victim who suffered needlessly at the hands of Larry Nassar after I spoke up. Why are public servants whose job is to protect getting away with this? This is not justice. Enough is enough. Today, I ask you all to hear my voice. I ask you, please do all that is in your power to ensure that these individuals are held responsible and accountable for ignoring my initial report, for lying about my initial report, and for covering up for a child molester. In closing, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the United States Senate, a very powerful institution that from the very beginning has fought for us rather than against us. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
So that's very powerful testimony there. Scathing testimony. She calls out the Department of Justice. She calls out the FBI. That end bit about the Senate, I think, is perhaps a little bit inaccurate. The Senate, participates in much of the systemic causation for the kinds of abuses that we see from government agencies like the FBI. But that's really a side note. The point is that the Department of Justice and the FBI very much complicit in covering up for Larry and his crimes. And I want to point out, you guys, Special Agent in Charge Jay Abbott emails revealed weeks ago that Jay Abbott was seeking a job with U.S. Olympics. So it looks even worse than just your typical cover-up. It looks like out and out quid pro quo, or at least an attempt on behalf of Special Agent Jay Abbott to engage in quid pro quo and let Larry Nassar go for his own political ambitions, or rather career ambitions. And that is even more egregious. And I also want to point out, you guys, that the FBI, like, just as a general organization, needs to be replaced. They just need, it is so spoiled and tainted. The corruption and abuse and exploitation is so cooked into the institution itself, into the agency itself, that it just needs to be replaced. We all, I mean, you say the word FBI and everyone at home, you got what, like a couple dozen stories and instances popping into your head where the FBI engaged in horrific abuses of power, whether it was killing activists, prosecuting activists, allowing people to get away with egregious crimes because of their political or economic situations. All of these instances start popping into your head, right? So the FBI just needs to go. I mean, even this whole Gretchen Whitmer thing, the plot against Gretchen Whitmer, it's worth noting that there were more FBI informants involved in this than the actual people that they prosecuted. And it's like this trope that they like to do, where they find vulnerable people or people who might be very confused or in the war on terror days, earlier in the war on terror days, it was like find some fundamentalists and try to basically convince them to commit an act of terror. And then when they do what the FBI convinced them to do, they get arrested for the act itself. And you find out that there were all of these informants that were like pressuring them to do the thing. So the FBI, one of the things they love to do is create these plots and then spoil them. And it does two things for them. First of all, it maintains the fear that they need to justify their existence. They like a terrified populace. That's what they want more than anything. And second of all, it makes them look like, oh, see, we're so necessary. See, we spoiled it. We did it. You know, they get good press for it. And the individual agents usually get, you know, accolades and incredible benefits that come from being one of the agents to quote unquote spoil one of these plots that the FBI themselves formulated. I mean, it's like a classic trope that they do. So the FBI just in general, more often than not, bad actors. This is, and also very involved in sort of the demagoguery of our politics. Like they love to go to the media and play up wedge issues to try to fearmonger and all this kind of bullshit. The FBI is an awful institution. It's an awful agency. It should be gutted and replaced. And once again, here we see how, you know, even in cases of like one of the most disgusting crimes in society, sexually abusing children. It's hard to come up with a more disgusting crime than that. And they allowed him, after Michaela came forward, they allowed him to continue abusing girls for over a year, you guys. So this is what the agency really does. If they're really so effective, how does January 6th happen? They were like openly talking about this shit on social media for months. How does January 6th happen if the FBI is any good at their job at all? No, what they're there to do is fearmonger, terrify the public, create plots to spoil, to make themselves look good, and squash political activism. That's what they're there to do. And again, they just need to be replaced. I'm glad to see these accusations coming to light and getting some attention, even in the mainstream media. I'm glad to see the criticism of the FBI making it to the mainstream media. That is a good thing. I'm glad to see that Nassar is finally being held to some form of account and cannot abuse girls anymore. And I want to see as much transparency about this as possible. And I want to see those FBI agents and anyone else in the Department of Justice who engaged in this kind of bullshit. I want to see them held to account of some form. And the more that this story gets out, the more likely that is to occur. So horrendous story there, but it's good to see it coming to light, right? That part is positive.